thought that there would be this disk floating in space. And the idea was that if you were to go there, you would eventually fall down the side of this disk. And despite that idea, the explorers on the shores of Portugal and Spain and Italy were like, okay, if that's the case, let's go and check it out. Which means that they were facing certain death because they didn't know if this here would happen or not, and obviously it didn't. Now, we have to understand that the flat Earth theory was something that was only prevalent in Europe at the time. The rest of the world, like in India or in many of the other old cultures, they all understood that the Earth was a sphere. So, and even in Europe, I mean, back in the time of the Greeks, they knew that the Earth was not flat, that the Earth was a sphere. So that is why it's called the Dark Ages, because we've lost a whole bunch of knowledge during that time that we then, quote-unquote, rediscovered. And so it turns out that that is exactly what we are as a species. We are explorers, despite the fact that we're told sometimes, okay, this is how it is. And there's a few crazies out there that are like, okay, if that's how it is, let's go check it out if that's really the case. And hence, that's how we found out that the Earth back in the day in Europe was not necessarily flat. And so, because of that, you see, ultimately, once we have explored the surfaces of Earth, and then later we'll explore the ocean surface, the ocean floors, the next final frontier, the next logical step will be space. And by space, I don't mean any type of unmanned drones or unmanned craft or something like this, but actually craft that are manned with astronauts. And so this is a picture of the current International Space Station, which is in the final stages of completion. But after we're done here, we will actually return to the moon. And we will do this, first of all, with some type of launch vehicles that will replace the space shuttle, because as we've all heard, the space shuttle was recently retired, and NASA, sits there with a big thumb up their ass, wondering what they're doing. And so eventually, we'll go. This will be the privatization of space travel. That the space exploration will no longer come from the government side, but it'll be from the private sector, which I'm actually welcoming, because there's way less shilly-shallying around in the private sector than there is with any type of government agency. And so we will return to the moon, and we will actually begin using rather small habitats, or we'll go there with rather small modules, and then we'll build something larger. And once we are done on the moon, or not while we're done, but while we're established on the moon, and by the way, we'll go to the moon because of resources and things like that. I am not suggesting that the entire planet is going to pack up their belongings and we're going to move to the moon. It's only going to be a handful of people who will do this. So after the moon, we will actually then move on to Mars. And mind you, none of the stuff that I'm talking to you or telling you about tonight is stuff that is